not looking like the world beaters of 1996. The Packers are finding out that expectations have been elevated, and opponents are eager to ambush the reigning champs. And who better to challenge the Packers than Dennis Green and his Minnesota Vikings, who have won 7 of their last 10 meetings. Lambeau Field in Green Bay as the Minnesota Vikings come to Green Bay to face the Packers. No place quite like it. And Lambeau Field is rocking. The ambiance is just tremendous. No better place to see a pro football game or any kind of football game than right here. Mike Holmgren coaches the defending world champions. They just came off of a victory last week over the Miami Dolphins, yet he's still not happy. Not satisfied with his product. And why would that be, John?
Well, he's a little upset with the way the Packers have started. We all know that Mike Holmgren scripts the first 15 plays. He makes them up. Those are his plays. They go over them on Saturday night. They go over them in the locker room just before the game. And he says we're making way too many mistakes on him. And they want to get off to a good start because you can hear this crowd behind us now. And when you get off to a good start, then that crowd is with you, and they stay with you the whole game. And that is big here.
And they face a division opponent today in the Minnesota Vikings, a team that's always given them trouble. Now, what do the Vikings have to do today?
Well, like Dennis Green says, the first thing he says, we aren't afraid of these guys. We know that we can beat them because we have beaten them. We have to stop the run. The Minnesota Vikings are 28th against the run. He said if we can get the run stopped, then we can go after Brett Favre in the passing game because you have to knock Brett Favre down.
And one thing you can be sure of, it is loud, and it's going to be louder as the day passes by. Coming up, the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers from Lambeau Field. And John and I'll be back for the opening kickoff when Fox NFL Sunday continues after these messages from your local station.
Let's do that up front. Let's go! Let's go, Favr! Dominate!
You're watching Fox NFL Sunday. And now, the Erickson Countdown continues.
The Vikings and the Packers. The Vikings won the toss. They will receive the honorary captain out for the Packers. The custom that they have observed in the last few years was Chester Marco. Remember that name?
Yeah, I sure do. You know, this is such a great place. I mean, you always see old Packer players here. Today it's Chester Marco. Ray Nitschke's always around here. You know, all the, Bart Starr was here talking to the team last week. And the tradition in this place is just such a great thing and a great scene. I've always said if you ever had a shrine to professional football or a shrine to the NFL, it's right here in Lambeau Field.
Here it is. This is Robert Tate. The ball bounces away from him, and the Vikings will down it in the end zone. And let's look at their offense. Led by Brad Johnson. Some question about his ability to speak, but he appears to have conquered that. In front of him, Stu C. McDaniel, Christy Dillon, Stringer. Now, those who handle the ball will be Robert Smith and Evans, Jake Reed, Chris Carter, the wide receivers, and Hunter Goodwin is the tight end, although we'll see a 2 tight end set up a lot of times for Minnesota today. This time it's regular as they start from their 20. Brad Johnson back to throw it. On first down. Pass complete to Smith. Out of the backfield. Let's look at that very tough Packer defense. The front 4. Wilkins, Brown, Santana, Dotson, and Reggie White. The 3 linebackers, Williams, Bernardo Harris in the middle, and Wayne Simmons. The secondary, Evans, Robinson, Butler, starting in spite of his injury, and Tyrone Williams. 2nd and 5 for Minnesota. Smith. Spun to his left and picked up a couple of extra yards, brought down by Eugene Robinson.
Yeah, it was interesting talking to Fritz Shermer, the defensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers yesterday, talking about Robert Smith. He said that he thinks that he's the best cutback runner in football. And anytime you have a cutback runner, you not only have to be strong in your defense on the onside, but you have to keep containment and backside pressure and backside gaps.
You stay home. That's Brad Johnson, and this was a quarterback sneak. I think you have to call that more than a sneak as he gets across the 50 into Packer territory, brought down finally by Pryor.
Yeah, this is a big play for Brad Johnson. They do this all the time. The Vikings do. You watch here, he just takes the ball and just goes straight up the middle. And I think any time that you don't have a middle linebacker, any time that you don't have someone right over the center, you see when the middle linebacker moved out there? I think any time that they move out there and there's no guy covering the center, Brad Johnson is just going to take it.
There's the Green Bay 44. Hand off to the fullback, Charles Evans, and he gets a couple.
I wonder if this Green Bay Packer crowd here, Pat, knows that Brad Johnson can't talk. That
I doubt it.
He got hurt. He got hit in the throat, and he really hasn't been able to speak all week. He's tried to save his voice. They can hear in the huddle because they can watch and read his lips. Where they're really going to have the problem if this crowd gets loud, hearing this part of it, the cadence, right here when he gets up on the line of scrimmage.
Two tight ends set up. Here's Johnson back to throw. Fires outside, complete to Chris Carter. Jake Reed, I beg your pardon, who moved over to the other side. Now, and Reed gets the first down.
Now there is a big wide receiver, Jake Reed. I mean, you just look at the size of these wide receivers, and they're like, you're 6'3" and 220 pounds. And even Dennis Green said last night, he said, they can practice against these guys, but they can't simulate the size. And then when we talked to Jake Reed, I remember in the league when tight ends used to be
oh gosh, yeah, he's big, 6'4", 220. Just a little bit shy of a first down as they brought the sticks out to measure.
Well, one thing that they did on that play, and I think is a big part of this game plan, is having Jake Reed or Chris Carter, but throwing more to that right side against the cornerback Tyrone Williams.
Jake Reed is not normally on that side. He is again this time. 4 wide receivers.
I don't think they'll run a quarterback sneak this time.
Don't think so.
Gilbert Brown's over the center. They did. They ran away from Gilbert, but you see the difference.
They didn't get much. I know that.
No, when Gilbert Brown wasn't in there and there was no middle linebacker in there, but now you put Big Gilbert here. Now what Johnson's going to try and do is get over to this side, but watch the difference. When Gilbert Brown is inside, boom, he just takes on 2, and there's no place for him to go. And by the time he slides out, number 98, Gabe Wilkins is right there waiting for him.
Well, they'll measure again. You believe last time we were here, and today it's almost 80 degrees warmer. You make it.
I can believe it, and I can also believe that the Vikings are going to have to go for it again on 4th down. I think this is a situation that if they kick the field goal, it would be a 51-yard field goal. Of course, if you punted and a win in the end zone, you'd only pick up 9 yards. So this is the ideal situation to go for it on 4th down. Now I would expect the running back would get it.
2 tight ends. Robert Smith deep. He gets it. Yeah, he didn't make it. I don't know. It's going to be close. With the last little surge, he might have. But I suspect that they'll measure it again. Johnson says they got it. Of course, he would.
Well, one thing they want to do is they want to stay away from that middle, and they want to stay away from big old Gilbert Brown in there. I'm surprised that they did run towards Reggie White, though.
I guess he says they got it. He can't make himself heard. Or couldn't during the week.
This is going to be a close one. They're gonna measure that one.
Yep. 3rd time they'll measure.
Last week they had a little problem with this turf. It was very, very slippery. It's a brand new turf, brand new field. They just got the first down.
Yes, by the end of the ball.
But it looked like there was some slipping and some turf coming out on this last play. But you see Reggie White gets the pressure there. And did you see the turf fall out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, when Robert Smith made that cut, his right foot planted and poof, a big old divot popped right out of the field.
It is new turf, new since last year. We'll tell you more about it. That's Chris Carter on the move, and Johnson back to throw. Carter slipped a little bit. Cut it upfield.
You know, one thing we talked about where they're going to work. Remember when Greg Newsome, the normal left corner for the Packers, was injured and he's going to be out for the season. That was a big loss because Newsome was a heck of a cornerback. Tyrone Williams is taking his place now, and although he played 9 there, they're the guys that the Vikings are going to work on.
Smith cut down by Bernardo Harris. Now here come the extra defensive backs. Harris comes out. They'll go with 6 defensive backs.
You know, here's where they're trying to run on this side. Randall McDaniel here, one of the best run-blocking guards in football. He didn't get Santana Dobson blocked on that play, so there was no place inside to run, so they had to take it outside.
3 wide receivers, 3rd and 5. Johnson outside. Jake Reed makes the catch. Juggled for a moment, but stayed in bounds and had possession long enough to make the first down.
I tell you, this Brad Johnson is something, isn't he?
He really is. Big guy.
I know, he's a big guy, but, you know, the amazing thing is like Dennis Green said last night, he's homegrown. But he had to be homegrown because he never played that much college football. At Florida State, he only started in 7 college games.
Played behind Casey Weldon, a more familiar name. He was also a basketball player.
And that's why he played behind Casey Weldon.
This is Smith. On first down, he got a couple. This is the kind of start the Packers, we talked about Mike Holmgren being upset. This is one of the reasons. Well, they can't get the offense on the field.
That's right, and the same thing happened to him last week against the Miami Dolphins, and now you have your offense there, and they got their script, and the crowd is in it. They're all ready to go, but you notice how quiet the crowd is now? This is a way to quiet a crowd and frustrate an offense by keeping your offense on the field.
2nd down, Johnson back to throw, semi-rollout. Jake Reed dives. Couldn't get his feet down in the end zone. He made the catch. Jake Reed is the downfield gun, and he can get there and get open.
And Brad Johnson had a gun on that one too. I mean, that throw was right there, and you can just see that everything was out of bounds. I mean, he dropped the ball out of bounds. He didn't have any feet down or anything, but you see Brad Johnson makes a little roll to the right, and he's going to throw the post. It was just a little late. Had he thrown that ball a little sooner or a little more to the left, had he led Jake Reed across to the left, that would have been a touchdown.
Jake Reed got one elbow down in the end zone, and that was it.
One elbow doesn't equal anything.
Nope. Jake Reed juggled, had to come back for the slant, but got it. 1st and goal inside the 5.
Yeah, that's what having big receivers does. I mean, you get a guy like Jake Reed. He's so big here that he's tough to bump. You see, you come and you bump him, and then he can give you a move, or he can run right through you. And then when he does catch the ball, he's still no bargain when you go after tackle him. Watch that. He kind of bobbled out. It was behind him, but he's such a big target in there. Both Reed and Carter.
Evans, the fullback, still fighting, gets down to about the 2. And you're right, John. This crowd is quiet.
Because they can't cheer. You see, that's the thing. I mean, everyone says get the crowd into the game, but you really can't get the crowd into the game cheering when the other team's doing well. If they were cheering, they'd have to be cheering right now for the Minnesota Vikings.
And it is a packed house.
Yeah, and this is the 15th play of this drive, so that's a long time for that defense to be on the field and a long time for the Packer offense to be off the field.
2 tight ends set up for the Vikings. Robert Smith. Not quite. Bernardo Harris. About a yard shy, half yard shy.
Robert Smith is one of those guys that kind of runs straight up and down and is a long strider and doesn't look like he's going anyplace, but because he takes long stride, he gets there quicker than you think he's getting there.
3rd and goal at about the half-yard line.
This would be a good play pass down to fake a run, throw a pass.
Smith.
Good to dive over.
Yeah, he got in the air. He's quite an athlete. In addition to being a fine runner, he's a track man.
But he looked like a track man. He looked like a high jumper on this. Watch here. I mean, he takes off about the 3-yard line, and he doesn't land until he gets about 3 yards into the end zone.
Right.
He went 6 yards depth, and he went 8 yards up. I counted how high he went. He was 8 yards up in the air and 6 yards deep.
Good looking drive by the Vikings, and Greg Davis adds the extra point. Minnesota leads 7-0. The opening drive, 16 plays, 80 yards. Robert Smith scored the touchdown.
Fox NFL Sunday is brought to you by Southwest Airlines. With fares so low, you have the freedom to fly. By Porsche, who wish to remind you there is no substitute. By IBM, solutions for a small planet. And by Hertz, for business, for pleasure. Nobody does it exactly like Hertz.
Greg Davis to kick off. They faked an onside kick. All the Packers came running up. Now they're running back. Aaron Hayden and Schrader back deep. That's Schrader. Now backwards, comes out of the pack. Stays on his feet, gets out of bounds at about the 25. Brett Favre had to warm up again. Chris Walsh made the stop. And the Packer offensive unit heads on the field. 7-0 Minnesota lead. The Vikings lead the Packers. The Packers' first chance with their offensive unit on the field. The Vikings took the opening kickoff and drove it 80 yards. Brett Favre. Career against Minnesota, 3-6. So they have given him problems. And the Packers problems. Here's Dulcie Levin. Into Minnesota territory. Jeff Brady is a flag on the play. Brady made the stop. Levin on his first carry.
Well, we talked about script and having to get off to a good start, and that first play wasn't a bad call.
Larry Nimmers is the referee. This is against Minnesota.
93 defense for a late hit, 15 yards, first down.
John Randall.
But you're going to see Dorsey Levens just follow his fullback Henderson right here. Henderson doesn't have to block anyone until he gets to the strong safety Robert Griffith. So there was no one. They caught him all slanting in, and then Henderson was able to go to the outside and pick off Griffith. And watch 93 right there, John Randall. That's what they called the personal foul on after the play. You know, they have this ongoing battle. The Vikings think that the Packers on offense run downfield and they hit over the pile. Had a big fight about it last week. So now their defense is doing the same thing. That's what John Randall just did.
Favre. Outside. Intended for Freeman over his head. Let's look at the Green Bay offense. Led by Brett Favre. Twice the NFL's most valuable player. The longest current quarterback streak. His line, Michaels, Taylor, Dellenbach at center. Timmerman and Dotson. Levens, Henderson. Levens, who just made that long run. Freeman and Brooks wide, and Mark Shimura, the tight end. Opening drive offense has not been that good. He's inclined to start a little wild high, as he just did. A little outside. Brooks, the intended receiver. Let's look at the Minnesota defense. The front four: Alexander, Randall, Fisk, and Smith. The linebackers: McDaniel, Brady, and Dixon Edwards. And in the secondary, Dwayne Washington, Orlando Thomas, Griffith, and Corey Fuller. Four wide receivers for the Packers this time.
look at John Randall there, Pat. Yeah.
Come on.
He's the guy that is talking the whole game.
Spun out of his block. Favr again throws high. The Vikings intercept. It's Dwayne Washington who comes up with the ball all the way out to the Minnesota 38-yard line, where the Vikings take over there. An injured Packer. This is Michaels, the starting offensive left tackle, who's slow getting to his feet.
And Brett Favr was also slow getting to his feet. I think he was hit by John Randall just as he threw that ball.
That could have been one of the reasons he was high with the pass. He was on his way down.
Watch John Randall on this play. He's going against Aaron Taylor, and he does a spinner move on him, and then he's in there, and he hits Brett Favr, so Brett Favr can't step up. You see now when Brett Favr comes in here, see, just as he goes to step, John Randall is right there hitting him just as he throws. The ball goes high, and Dwayne Washington was just standing back there waiting for it.
Here is Brad Johnson lofting the ball outside, intended for Smith. Incomplete and out of bounds.
Hey, everything that the Packers wanted to do, they haven't been able to do. You know, they wanted to get off to a good start. They wanted the script to work well. They wanted to be able to, obviously, to stop the Minnesota Vikings. They haven't stopped the Vikings yet. They got the ball. They had a pretty good run. Then they got a penalty. And then the next thing they know, they throw an interception, and the Vikings have the ball back again.
2nd and 10, Minnesota. Smith again, not much. A couple of yards is all. Santana Dotson made the stop.
And we talk about matchups, and one of the big matchups on the line is going to be Randall McDaniel against both Santana Dotson and Gilbert Brown. And you think of guards in this league, I think Larry Allen from the Dallas Cowboys is probably the best, but I'll tell you this, Randall McDaniel right here, the left guard of the Minnesota Vikings, is right up there with any of the other guards in this league.
Johnson taken down by Reggie White. Around the corner.
He went right around old Corey Stringer there, and they did it with a 3-man line, too. Someone has to lift this team. Here, now watch, here's Reggie here. Here's Corey Stringer blocking him here. Again, they only have 3 defensive linemen here, but watch Reggie. He gets off to a little late start. He just gives him that hump move. You see, he started upfield, then he gets that right hand inside and brings Corey Stringer to the outside.
Schrader back for the Packers. They had trouble looking into that sun. He lost sight. Got it on the hop, and this is Schrader. In the warm-ups, both teams had problems looking in that direction, looking up into the sun. Didn't bother Reggie White. 7-0. Minnesota leads. The Bay of Green Bay. Beautiful country.
You know what goes into the Bay of Green Bay?
Water.
No, I know, but where there's a confluence, the Fox River. The Fox River flows into the Bay of Green Bay.
The Packers' first-round draft choice has taken Michaels' place at left offensive tackle. 3 wide receivers far. Gives to Levens, and Levens picked his way for a couple. Michaels, who was injured on the interception thrown by Favr, having his knee retaped or taped originally. I'm not sure which.
And that Ross Verba is a guy that could be a future starter on this Green Bay Packer team. You know, sometimes you get a guy like that in there. I mean, he's a big, strong, tough guy, and they never come out. You know, that could very well happen.
A nasty personality, they say.
Well, you need that. That's what this league's all about.
Robert Brooks. Right now for a McDonald's game break, let's return to Joe Buck at the Fox Television Center in Hollywood.
All right, Pat, the Fox River flows back to Hollywood. No surprise here. Drew Bledsoe, 7-yard touchdown strike to Vincent Brisby. New England out in front. Let's go back to Green Bay. Pat and John.
Joe Buck in the studio. JB's here. At Lambeau.
Brett Favre just completed his first pass of the day.
Here at Lambeau. Favre again. Sidearm, underarm, throwaway.
You know, an interesting thing, Brett Favre says the only guy that he's scared of in this league is this guy right here, John Randall. And John Randall has been over him all day. Watch him here. He shifts to the outside, and then he just splits a double team, and he is going to be after Brett Favre all day. And I'll guarantee you, he's going to hit him and knock him down. And the other thing I'll guarantee you, he's also going to be talking to him.
He's the kind of guy, you know, the guys who hit you and knock you down, yes. And they're the guys who hit you and knock you down and hurt you.
Yeah,
and that's John Randall.
And then there are guys that hit you, knock you down, and hurt you, and then tell you about it. That's also John Randall.
Free play.
Offside.
Free play. Brooks, yes, from Favre. Inside the Minnesota 35. There's a flag on the play, however.
And that's going to be a late hit. It's against Derek Alexander, though. It's not John Randall, but Derek Alexander hit Brett Favre after he threw the ball. I think John Randall jumped offside. That's going to be one penalty against the Vikings. Then there's going to be another one, a late hit against Derek Alexander. These are both going to be against the Vikings.
Offside defense, number 95. Penalty is declined. Personal foul, number 90 of the defensive team. 15 yards added to the end of the reception. First down.
Here you're going to see the offsides right there. That's the offside. So now Brett Favre knows that he has a free play. Now he throws the ball, and see the ball is gone, and Derek Alexander right here hits him after he throws the ball. And I think the other thing that they got him for was going for the knees.
Yep. 19-yard pickup, 15-yard penalty, and the Packers are inside the Minnesota 20. Henderson behind Favre.
Favre looks like he's calling an audible here.
Touchdown. Brooks. Gonna jump?
Yeah, he's going to jump.
Got in.
He's in there. He's lost. Where is he? Last time I saw him, he was going underneath a cheese head. Yep, they're picking him back up, letting him come out. Robert Brooks. What a story he's been, huh?
Really.
That injury, some thought that it may cost him his career, that he may never play football again. The off-season, the dedication, and Brett Favre says the guy hasn't changed. He's as good as he ever was.
Which is pretty good. For the extra point, long. That ties it. Seven, 3:26 left in the first.
Here's Robert Brooks right here. He's going to run a post pattern. The safety is held here and doesn't get over. He gets there too late. Now watch Robert Brooks again. You come off the line. He makes a little move. He gets by that bump. Now he has that hole. Brett Favre throws it perfectly in that hole between the corner who is covering and the safety who's trying to get over.
His 152nd touchdown pass. That's Brett Favre's career. And that ties Bart Starr's Packer record. He's done it in a relatively short time. Robert Tate gets the line drive kickoff and brings it to the 35. And a flag on the play.
But, you know, they talk about throwing the ball like a frozen rope. Watch that thing. That is a frozen rope thrown in a hole. They say that Brett Favre can, when he's hot, he can throw a football in a hole of a donut.
During the return.
And hurt you.
Illegal block in the back, number 87. 10-yard penalty, first down.
Illegal block against the Vikings.
But you know, that's
a good one. Excuse me.
No, I was saying that just shows how tough Brett Favre is. I mean, he'd had the hit by John Randall, and then he'd had the late hit by Derek Alexander. So he's just been knocked down a couple times when he stood up there and shot that touchdown in there to Robert Brooks.
3:17 left in the first quarter. 7-7 tie. First and 10, Minnesota back at their own 15. This is Robert Smith. To the 20.
Sometimes you can get a little too fired up, and I think the Vikings, especially on defense, are a little too fired up. I mean, they're giving things away like the late hits, the penalties. They've had 3 penalties already, and there's a fine line in football. There's a fine line between being ready, being aggressive, going after them, making things happen, and then hitting late and doing those kinds of things. And they have 2 penalties for late hits so far.
Brad Johnson through the hands of Jake Reed. You can play with passion, but you have to have a little poise to go with it.
Yeah, and it has to be a smart thing. It has to be, the type of thing that you want people to go all out. You want them to do everything, from the time the ball snaps till the whistle blows, and then once the whistle blows, there's nothing else you can do until the next time the ball snaps.
And the real champions know how to do that week after week.
I used to always tell my special teams guys, I want fanatics here. I want fanaticism. Then I'd get penalties, and I'd say, I want controlled fanaticism.
Here's that quarterback sneak again. A face mask violation this time is going to be against the Packers, I'm sure. Johnson saw no middle linebacker and took off.
Yeah. Anytime he sees a soft middle, I think he just kind of gooses the center and goes.
Personal foul. 15-yard face mask. Number 59. 15 yards, first down.
Very little is good with a soft middle.
Well, that's the thing. You see, he sees that there's no one in there. Then the first guy that gets here is number 59, Wayne Simmons, and he gets there with his hand on his face mask. You see, this is what he's looking at. He's looking at right there that he can go right here, and the only thing there is the umpire. You see, so he sees that's the soft middle between the nose tackle and the wide defensive end.
This is Smith. He picks his way for about 4 yards, stopped by Bernardo Harris, who's been very active.
All the way back to high school, you did have that play, that old goose play where, where the quarterback just raises his hand in the center, and then the center feels it and snaps it. And if you've ever been a center, and I was a center, anytime you'd snap one early, you'd always say, hey, I thought it was that quarterback sneak. I thought he goosed me.
I thought you were a tackle.
No, well, I was a center, too. I mean, if you're a lineman, heck, they just flop you any place around there. But I was flopped in at center for a while.
This is Smith, and he got some in. This time stays on his feet, and you're going to have to hustle if you're going to catch him.
They aren't going to catch him.
Smith dives into the end zone. They're saying he stepped out of bounds, I believe, at about the 7, maybe the 6.
That was the thing that Fritz Shermer was talking about. He said that Robert Smith is the best cutback runner. Now watch him here. He's going to start to the left, and here's the cutback right here. He's going to cut back right there against the grain. You see, they over-pursued. Leroy Butler got up. He just ran right by Butler. Now, this looked like a touchdown, but they're marking the ball at the 6-yard line.
He got a great block, John, from the umpire.
Yep, he did get
a great block from the umpire.
Doesn't it seem like the umpires are getting in the way more and more in this game? But you did see his foot step out about the 7-yard line.
From the 6. Inside is Robert Green, who gave Smith a blow.
That's one
the umpire got in the way, and I'm not saying he wouldn't have gone anyway. But
part of that was a good cutback, and that was the thing. And again, that Fritz Shermer said yesterday that Robert Smith is the best cutback runner in all of football. And the thing that he does, I always thought Emmitt Smith was, but the thing that he does is once he decides to go, he slashes with real speed.
How about no running backs now? Johnson has the ball batted in the air. The Packers dive in an attempt to intercept, but nobody can get there.
But just there's, as you say, it either has to be a quarterback sneak or a pass, because when there's no one there, you know that we're going to be in there, and they have to throw the ball. Wayne Simmons was a linebacker, and all he was doing, I think he was just playing for the quarterback sneak. and he was spying on the quarterback, was shadowing him, and then he just got in that lane that Brad Johnson was going to throw the ball in.
That's the deep back. Johnson fires it through the upright. No flags, and the field goal team comes on.
Yeah, that's the place to throw it away, though. I mean, if you're in there and you're on the 7-yard line, just think how big a play that was when Robert Smith stepped out of bounds.
Oh boy, yeah.
You know, that was a 4-point play. That step on the sideline was a 4-point step if they make this field goal.
Greg Davis for the extra point, for the field goal, sorry, from 22 yards away. Berger is the holder. Field goal is wide right.
That was a 7-point step.
Yep. Denny Green can't believe. First he lost the touchdown and the field goal. Minnesota 7, Green Bay 7. Watch the umpire.
You see that? He picked up Eugene Robinson as a safety coming across.
Down the middle of the Brooks. Dropped it.
You know, the big play on that drive was Leroy Butler, because Leroy Butler was the guy that was chasing Robert Smith, and he made a dive for him, and Butler was the guy that really made Smith step out of bounds. And of course, it would have been a touchdown, and then so they missed the field goal, so they come up with nothing on that play. But just again, after Robinson was picked off by the umpire, then Leroy Butler really had a hustle to catch up with Smith, and he does. Watch this. Here's Leroy Butler here. Now you see this is a touchdown, but right here, watch Butler lay out. He just lays out and just hits enough there that forces that foot out of bounds. Had Leroy Butler not been there, Robert Smith could have just ran straight in the end zone.
That's exactly right. 7-7, 16 seconds left. Gives to Henderson. Robinson and Robert Smith hasn't been able to stay healthy in previous years, but he is dangerous when he does. 7-7 at the end of one at Lambeau Field in Green Bay. Tonight, it's the premiere of the new Fox Sunday night, starting with the series premiere of The World's Funniest. Then it's the season premieres of The Simpsons and King of the Hill, plus the Emmy Award-winning X-Files. All starts tonight at 7/6 Central here on Fox. 7-7 tie at Lambeau Field, 3rd and 6, far back to throw under pressure. Steps away from it. Incomplete, intended for Freeman.
You know, Brett Favr is one of those guys, especially early in the game. When he's good, he's really, really good. And then when he's bad, he can be really, really bad. But then he can go from being really, really bad to being really, really good awfully quickly.
And once you've seen a really, really good one like that, they just stick out. You can really see the difference.
Well, he was really, really good on that last one that he threw on that last series when he threw that touchdown to Robert Brooks.
Hendrick. Firing punt. David Palmer will field it for Minnesota. Palmer comes out of the pack momentarily, gets out to the 35. The Vikings will take over there. 14:42 left in the first quarter. Minnesota and Green Bay.
Fox NFL Sunday is brought to you by Lexus and the new LS400. When was the last time you felt so connected to a car? By Frost Brewed Coors Light, who reminds you the 3 most important words are, hey, beer, man. By The Edge, the exciting new thriller from 20th Century Fox, September 26th, only in theaters. And by Visa, the official card of the NFL. It's everywhere you want to be.
A lot of corn in this part of the country.
Is that feed corn or eating corn? I think that's feed. If it's
whatever.
real big field, that's feed corn, and you don't just go pick off a cob and eat it. You can. Yeah, but you have to have eaten corn or smaller patches.
Robert Smith, the ball carrier, stopped by Gabe Wilkins. Look at the Vikings rushing yards in the first quarter.
Yeah, 110 yards. And, and look here, 27 plays. The Packers have only had 11, and it's because of this. They've had the ball in the first quarter 11 minutes and 53 seconds, and the Packers only had it 3 minutes.
And that's one of the things that Denny Green told us last night that they had to do, control the clock.
Yeah, but they left 7 points sitting out there in that field, too.
Brad Johnson wheels it out to Charles Evans, who can't wheel around and make the reception.
Yeah, it's interesting, see, because the crowd really hasn't gotten into the game yet, and been on defense, have been making a lot of noise because Brad Johnson isn't able to talk, and I think it would really not affect when he calls the play in the huddle, but right here when he gets up in the line of scrimmage, if they ever got into it right now on 3rd down, his line wouldn't be able to hear him,
and he'd have to deal with the wide receivers with hand signals, which they do a lot anyway. Here's Brad Johnson going deep for Chris Carter. He can't pull away right now again for McDonald's game break. Let's return to Joe Buck at the Fox Television Center in Hollywood.
Well, guys, Heath Schuler might not have a touchdown pass yet, but running back Mario Bates does. 21 yards. Great catch, Andre Hastings. He just ran in another 74 yards. It's a 14-0 Saints lead hosting Detroit.
It is 7-7 at Lambeau Field. The Vikings and the Packers. This is Schrader. And Schrader has some room. Hurdled over one of the Viking tacklers, and he too was quite an athlete. Is quite an athlete, I should say.
Yep, you can't beat Schrader from Sheboygan playing for the Green Bay Packers. Now you're talking football.
A decathlete. 54-yard punt, 39-yard return. At Lambeau Field in Green Bay, Pat Summerall with John Madden, John Randall. Brett Favre says he's the one guy I'm afraid of. With good reason.
He's always there. He's always around him. He's always knocking him down.
Levens lost the ball on the way to the line of scrimmage. Packers got it back.
Now here's Foge Fazio, Pat, and he calls the defenses for the Minnesota Vikings, and he has all the defenses on a wristband.
That was 7.
And then and Jeff Brady, the middle linebacker, number 50, has the same wristband, so he gives them that. That was the dice roll, so that meant 7. So then Brady looks down on his armband, and he looks at the number 7, and that's the defense that he called.
7 looks like just a regular defense, but here comes the blitz off the corner. Gets it to Brooks, who seems to be open every time they look for him. Orlando Thomas.
Little action down there. Robert Griffith was the guy who came on a blitz, and he was blocked, and he started doing some talking after that play. But again, Favre is a type of guy that will stay in the pocket, and you're going to hit him, and you're going to blitz him, and there's guys coming. See, here's Griffith coming right here, and he's oblivious to it. He doesn't know it. He steps up and just fires that thing in there, in any hole that he can find.
11.
You see Favre on that fake back? He handed off the ball to Levens, and then he faked a bootleg, and then after he faked a bootleg, he faked a jump pass. Now, here's a guy who's having fun with football. But watch Brett Favre. After he hands off, now right now, he doesn't have the ball anymore. He hands it off. Now, watch, he goes out there, and he fakes a jump pass. But you know the funny thing about it? That held the linebacker.
Yes,
See, the guy stays out there, and he reacts to it. And he says, I know it's stupid. He said, I just do it because I'm bored. He said, but the funny thing is, guys still do react to it.
And they always will. Short. Intended for Freeman. Flag on the play. Penalty marker.
Yeah, that's that big pattern that everyone throws, that slant pattern where the receiver goes down about 3 yards and then to the inside. And the corners read the quarterback, and it goes with a three-step drop. So when they see an in move by a receiver and a three-step drop by the quarterback, they just run right to that same point that the receiver's going to, and there's a collision there, and that's what just happened on that play.
Defensive pass interference, number 20. Spot foul, first down.
Yesterday, we spoke to Brett Favr on carrying out his pass fakes during a running play.
It looks kind of goofy, but it gets guys. I mean, I couldn't tell how many times I've had people say, you know, that's Johnny High School stuff. And in the way it is, but heck, it works. And I have fun doing it. You know, I get bored stiff out there in practice.
That's how it happens. He's bored stiff, and he does it, and it works.
He has fun. Here's Larry. Inside the 30, about the 28, stopped by Derek Alexander.
You know, we talked about the script of Mike Holmgren, and you can see what it was. You know, the Packers are really a passing team. I mean, he had 10 passes, and he had 5 runs. Now, how effective was it? Well, of course, he had the 1 touchdown and the 1 interception, and the run really hasn't been bad for him. And anyone who is not a running team, and the Packers are not a running team, will have trouble staying with the run.
2nd and 5. 2 tight end setup. Summerall on the move. Fakes to the fullback. Goes deep to Freeman, who's wide open. And his 2nd touchdown pass of the day. Now, this breaks Bart Starr's all-time Packer record.
Brett Favr has just made Packer history by throwing the 153rd touchdown pass of his career, breaking the team's all-time record of 152 set by Bart Starr. We direct your attention to the field, where referee Larry Niemers will present Brett with the ball he threw for the record-breaking pass. Congratulations, Brett Favr.
Bart Starr, the great Bart Starr, had the record. Brett Favr just broke it.
And he was really, really good when he did it.
Antonio Freeman was wide open in the end zone, and Favr got the record breaker to him.
Here's Antonio Freeman here. The Vikings are going to be his own. They're going to get a bump here. Antonio Freeman gets by. The safety doesn't get over, and Brett Favr hits him perfectly. Antonio Freeman, the outside receiver. See, there's no bump there, so Freeman is running right down the sideline. The safety looks to the inside. He's in zone. He doesn't get over there, so Antonio Freeman's wide open in the end zone.
Robert Tate takes the kickoff, and he is down about the 15. Aaron Hayden down to make the stop. The Aflac trivia question. What player scored the most points in 1 quarter in the history of the NFL? Most points in 1 quarter. You know?
Now, with the Aflac trivia, are we supposed to give any hints?
Yeah, I guess so. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll give a hint. It was a Green Bay Packer. That would be my hint. And yes, I do know who it was.
Okay.
But I didn't until last night.
Robert Smith stopped at the line of scrimmage, so let's let everybody in on the Aflac trivia answer. Don Hudson, a great receiver, kicker for the Green Bay Packers, scored 29 points in 1 quarter. 4 touchdowns, 5 extra points. And he, of course, among those honored in the Packers Circle of Honor. Well, Brad Johnson did a little fake after he handed off.
You know what happens? The other teams, see Brett Favr do that, and then that gets on their scouting report. So then they practice against that, and then a coach sees it, and they see, geez, the Green Bay Packers went to the Super Bowl. They're Super Bowl champions. Brett Favre was the MVP the last 2 years in the league. Maybe there's something to it. So then there's a lot of quarterbacks in the league doing it now.
Robert Smith had that one long run, 13 carries, 76 yards. He's averaging on the year almost 8 yards to carry.
And what a different ball game this became once he stepped out of bounds on that 7-yard line.
Johnson back to throw. Pass is picked off. Leroy Butler made the interception, still fighting for yardage. Butler, there was some doubt about whether or not he'd be able to play. He said, I got to be in this game, and he is.
Here's a guy who tore his bicep. Last week, they didn't know if he'd be able to play. He's wearing a brace on that arm, and he's come up with 2 big plays in this half. The first one, of course, was on that Robert Smith run we were talking about, and now he comes up with an interception. What you mean? He's a strong safety, playing zone most of the time, and he's just reading there, and he just got underneath that. You see, he was just playing that zone, that cover 3, where he had the outside flat, and he just read that. That was the 27th interception of his career.
David Palmer was protesting that he was interfered with, but the ball belongs to the Packers. The Minnesota 26, 1st and 10.
Ross Verbal, the rookie, is still playing left tackle for the Packers.
Here comes the blitz. Favr shakes it off, as only he can do. Takes the pass, scrambles down, gets a first down.
There's something happened to Favre's left elbow. Did you see he has that thing on there now? He didn't have that earlier. I think on one of those early times in the first quarter when he was knocked down, I think something happened to his left elbow. But this is the thing that makes Brett Favre so good, is if you don't get them all blocked, he can still play. I mean, he sees that there's no place he can step up in the middle, so he runs. And he's still looking to throw. Then the thing that a quarterback has when he's running with the ball, the advantage he has is he has a ball in his hand. So he can fake the ball at the guy who's going to tackle him and then run around him like he just did on Derek Alexander.
He's 230 pounds. He doesn't look it. You saw how easily he shook off that blitzing. Touchdown pass, number 3, the second to Antonio Freeman. 3 for Favre.
And it's that same pass. It's Antonio Freeman right down the slot through the zone. They don't get a bump. They let him run through. And I'll tell you, you let him run through. Brett Favre is going to find him and throw it to him.
By the way, that little the bandage he's wearing that you were referring to, John, is just a turf burn, which means he scraped some skin off the left elbow. He doesn't know it right now.
You see right here again, the Vikings are playing zone, and all Antonio Freeman did was run right down through their zone.
Extra point is good, and the Packers increase their lead to 21-7 over Minnesota. There's the Fox River in Green Bay.
And the Fox River is the river that goes into the Green Bay.
Right.
And at the point that it goes in is called a confluence.
We'd have that somewhere else.
Three River Stadium, a confluence where the 3 rivers meet. Let's watch that touchdown again. And you're going to see the Vikings are zoning. They're going back here. This free safety is zoning here. They're zoning, and they're just letting the receivers run right through their zone. And it doesn't do any good to zone the end zone if the guy's going to catch touchdown passes in front of you. You see the zone? No one is playing man-to-man. Here's Antonio Freeman. He's wide open, and they hit him between the guy that has a deep outside the corner and the guy that has a deep middle. You cannot zone the end zone when you're that deep.
Here's Robert Smith around the corner. Flag on the play back at the line of scrimmage.
I think they're going to get called for holding on Wayne Simmons. Wayne Simmons was a strong side linebacker, and I think Simmons would have been in position to make that play if he weren't held. You could just...
Offense number 82. 10-yard penalty. Repeat, first down.
That's Andrew Glover right there who did that, and they were just going to go right around him.
Favr surveying that defense you were just talking about. He's got 4 wide receivers. Looked to see what that safety man was going to do, which way he was going to go, and then he found Freeman. Good draw. First and 20, Robert Smith. Not much doing. Gabe Wilkins to make the stop.
You know, now I think with this lead, they can probably rest Vic Gilbert Brown. Gilbert Brown hurt his knee last week.
Yep.
In fact, it was his kneecap, and he told me the other day that the kneecap just moved. I think it moved. You know, usually your kneecap is right in front of your knee, and I think his kind of moved to the side of his knee.
And they had trouble finding it.
Yeah, and then they got it popped back in finally. So I think any chance that they have today to rest Gilbert Brown, they're going to do it.
Here's pass completion. Johnson.
Yeah, we just saw a picture there.
Excuse me.
I was just saying with Roy Butler and how big a part he's played in this game, because he was the guy that, again, you go to that Robert Smith play where he stepped out of bounds. I think that was a big momentum changer in this game, and Roy Butler was the guy who forced him to step out of bounds, and then he got that interception just before this 3rd touchdown that Brett Favr threw.
And of course, the Vikings, after he forced him out of bounds, missed the field goal attempt. So that was a real momentum changer, whatever you want to call it. Johnson sacked by the Packers. Butler's on top of the pile. Along with Gabe Wilkins again.
Here's Gabe Wilkins. He's going to come from this side. Here's Roy Butler again. It's a nickel situation, so he's the strong safety. But in this situation, he's playing in the linebacker position. And you see, he just comes in there slowly and just gets in there at the end because he's watching the quarterback.
Santana Dotson got there first. They were trying to block it. Berger gets it out of there. Schrader handles. Leaps over one Minnesota tackler. Comes out of bounds. And the Packers take over again, leading 21-7, 6:04 left to play in the first quarter. 50-yard punt, 11-yard return. This, of course, a neighborhood divisional NFC Central rivalry that is as intense as it gets between these two.
Well, and you know the Minnesota Vikings always feel confident when they play the Green Bay Packers because they've beaten them 7 out of the last 10 times. So they think that they know how to play them and play them well. They're in the same division, so they're going to play twice every game. And Minnesota isn't that far from Green Bay, so you have the geography thing.
2 tight ends set up this time. 11. Levin's for about 6 or 7. Ed McDaniel tripped him up. Passing by distance for Favr.
Well, you know, here's where, I mean, he'll do this. Sometimes football has gotten so they don't throw deep anymore. But look at this. He's 3 out of 6 for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns in 16 yards or more. Again, he's 11 out of 15. And that other, so it's not just short passing in this offense anymore.
3 wide receivers this time. Favr gets to Levin. Not much. A yard, maybe. Ed McDaniel made the initial contact.
Dorsey Levens says it's a lot different. You know, after Edgar Bennett got hurt, Dorsey Levens became the only back. When the Packers run the ball is going to be run by Dorsey Levens, and unless Favr scrambles with it or something. And I asked him the other day, what's the difference? He says, I'm tired all the time. Yeah. He said, before when I would spot Edgar Bennett, he said I'd come in, I'd be fresh. He said I'm never fresh anymore.
He was sensational down the stretch and in the playoffs last year. Here's Favr back to throw, incomplete. Intended for Mark Chmura.
Yeah, if you look when the Packers run the ball, Brett Favr runs it 14% of the time. That's a scramble. William Henderson 12%. And then you look at this pie. The biggest part is Dorsey Levens. When they run the ball so far this year, he's run it 74% of the time. That's why he's tired.
Henrik back to punt. Carmody trying to kick it short. Okay. The Packers down it at the 5. This week, it's the final weekend of the season, and the Fox Saturday Baseball Game of the Week will be there to bring you all the action when the postseason hopes are on the line. Coverage begins at 12:30 Eastern Pacific with In the Zone, followed by all the action. So check your local listings for the game and time in your area. First down, Minnesota, just outside their own 5-yard line. 21-7, Packer lead.
Now this crowd's getting into it.
Encouraging the Green Bay defense.
Well, and that's going to cause Brad Johnson some more problems.
Out of the end zone, Johnson fires. Carter. Feet got tangled up. He wants a penalty call. No call.
Well, we knew that they were going to work on Tyrone Williams, and they started out in the first quarter. They were working on Tyrone Williams. They had some success. Then they went to the running game. They got away from the Jake Reed, Chris Carter type thing, and now they look like they want to get back to it, and that's pretty good. The only thing bad about it is the field position's terrible.
One thing about Brad Johnson, he will throw it up the field.
And he has two guys that'll go get it up the field, in Jake Reed and Chris Carter.
He hands off to Russell Smith. Smith maybe got 2 yards. Packer offensive line meeting over on the sideline.
There's Earl Dotson here. He missed last week. He had a turf toe, didn't play last week. In fact, number 64 there, Bruce Wilkerson, played in his place and did a good job. You know, offensive linemen even sit on the bench the same way they line up in the game. Did you know that? Like Timmerman is a left guard, the right guard, and Dotson's a right tackle, so they sit right and left, right next to each other.
3rd and 7. Packers with a 3-man rush. Johnson intended for Carter, incomplete. And the Vikings will have to punt again.
The Packers have the Vikings right where they want them now.
Mitch Berger will come in to do the punting. Schrader back deep for Green Bay.
And you know that the Packers are going to get good field position here and then go after another score.
Berger's kick angles and comes out of bounds.
That's the official walk back and then finally spot that thing. I thought they were going to get some more on that, because the official who spots it is right here, and he walks back until the referee tells him to stop. And the Packers sideline was trying to edge him on more. But again, it's not controlled by him. It's controlled by the referee, who is behind the punter telling him where to stop.
This game is presented by authority of the National Football League, is intended for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or other use of this telecast without the express written consent of the Green Bay Packers and the NFL is prohibited.
Here's old Reggie White. He's been a good one for a heck of a long time, hasn't he?
And still good.
He's been a great one for a heck of a long time, I mean.
And still great.
Well, got some stuff going on back there. He's talking and pointing.
That was incomplete. That was close to being interference, and it was. Robert Brooks, the intended receiver.
Yeah, I don't think, other than John Elway, there's another quarterback in football that can make that throw. You know, he's going to throw to his left. He was talking to Antonio Freeman about something out there to his left.
27, automatic first down.
Corey Fuller.
And now he's on the left hash mark, and he throws it all the way across the field. I mean, Brett Favre is over here, and he's on the hash mark away from here. And he throws the ball all the way across the field on a line to Robert Brooks and hits him right in the hand. I don't know. I mean, I would say that Elway could probably do it, but I'd also say that from that hash mark, no other quarterback in the league could do that.
1st and 10, Green Bay. There's the Viking 37. Blitz coming. Favr had a perfect call. Levens on the screen pass to inside the 20 to about the 18. Stopped by Ed McDaniel.
Dorsey Levens was perfect on that play. It was a screen pass to him, but it was a blitz. So the first thing that he did is he blocked. He didn't go out in the screen. You watch Levens here. He doesn't come out. He's going to boom, and he's going to block the blitz, then let the blitz come, and then get in behind the screen. And that is excellent. You see, right here, you see him, boom, he blocks it right there, and then as he lets him go, he comes off, and that timed up that thing perfectly.
1st and 10, Green Bay at the Minnesota 19. Check, you heard him say he's changing. Back to throw is far. To Freeman. Out of bounds. Inside the 10 at the 7. Dwayne Washington knocked him out of bounds.
This second quarter has been precision for the Green Bay Packers. Brett Favre got up there. He gave a check, which is an audible. He called it to both sides and threw the ball perfectly out here for a first down. Packers are on a roll now. They have everything going.
And Favre is an artist at work. That was a little slow getting underway that time. Flags fall everywhere. The Vikings might have jumped off sides, or they might have taken too much time. Or it might be the 2-minute warning.
Prior to the snap, false start, offense 73. 5-yard penalty, still first down.
Aaron Taylor called for the violation. That could have been any number of things. 2-minute warning as Favre comes over to visit with Mike Holmgren. Jam-packed Lambeau Field in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Pat Summerall with John Madden. 2 minutes left to play in the first half. The Packers leading the Vikings 21-7. Minnesota scored first. Freeman to about the 3.
Yeah, we always talk about the red zone. The Packers are very good inside the red zone today, but the red zone is the area from the 20-yard line to the back of the end zone, of course. So you got, when you're talking about running, you have 20 yards to run, but you have 30 yards to pass. Now, what the Vikings are doing is they're trying to zone the end zone today, and the Packers are really eating them up with the passing game. Now, most teams have been having trouble in this red zone this year, but the Packers have kind of figured it out today against the Minnesota Vikings.
2nd and goal. There's a man in motion. Brooks was the intended receiver, just bounced off his fingertips.
Mike Holmgren is looking for some oxygen down there because he knew that he had one there, and he wants more. You want to always get, it's not that you want to run it up and you got the division rivals, but you want to get to a comfortable feeling in a game. And a comfort factor really doesn't get in until you get about 4 touchdowns ahead. And you say, why is he worried now? He has the game under control. Because it may be under control, but it's not at a comfortable position yet. 5 wide receivers. Watch this. Brett Favre could run a quarterback draw here.
He fires quickly to Harry Mickens this time. And Mickens takes Favre's 4th touchdown pass of the day.
They have it all going when they take all their running backs out and they split them out. The only thing they could run was, again, Favre could run a quarterback draw. Had all 5 of their receivers in there, Freeman and Brooks and Schrader and Mays and Mickens. Just watch him. And here's the one that they throw to. They throw to this side right here. Mickens was the inside guy on the weak side or the side of 2 receivers.
Longwell for the extra point. It's 28-7.
Now they're getting close to that comfort factor for the head coach.
Don't forget, coming up on the Dockers Khakis halftime report, we'll bring you scores and highlights from around the league. Our Fox Sports ticker will have up to the second stats. That's all coming up on the Dockers Khakis halftime, and the boys are on the scene.
Yeah, you see how hard it is to hear. You see how close Terry has to get his head to JB's head because it's hard to hear. See, so they have to get close, and that's the thing Brad Johnson's having a problem with. You hear this crowd noise, so you have to use your hands when you talk. You got to use your hands a lot when you talk, and then you have to get real close to the other guy's ear.
What about Howie and Ronnie?
They aren't talking. They don't care. I was just worried about how his pants fit.
How's he look?
He's trying to figure where he is. Howie's trying to figure out where am I? You see him stand up and look around?
Yeah.
Oh, what a group.
Ronnie looks very distinguished in his new chapeau.
Is that what you use, chapeau?
Yeah. Vince Lombardi's likeness present in the stands. Always will be.
Yeah, but that's what's great about this. When you come here, you're coming to football. When you drive down Lombardi Avenue to get here and go in the parking lot, see the Lambeau Field, and
maybe you make a trip on Holmgren Way.
Yep, this is what it's all about.
Robert Tate fumbled it momentarily. Now he picks it up, and he's taken down inside the 15. The Packers special teams do their job and do it capably.
Yeah, we talked about really, really good, really, really bad, and then really, really good. Look at his second quarter. No, this is just the second quarter. 7 out of 10 for 96 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now that's playing quarterback in the NFL.
That is, well, a lot of people would settle. A lot of people would settle for game stats like that. 3 touchdowns.
And you know, and the thing that impresses me about Brett Favre, Pat, is he has fun doing it.
Yep. Johnson incomplete, intended for Jake Reed.
He said, and he hasn't gotten hit a lot today. I think they started out earlier and they tried to blitz him and then went to a zone. And he said sometimes he's played the Minnesota Vikings and he gets hit so hard that his tongue slaps his brain. I don't know, that's getting hit. But when you get hit and you go boom, and the next thing that happens to you is your tongue is up there slapping your brain, you know that the guy comes from somewhere that he didn't get blocked.
Here's Brad Johnson back to throw. Last time, the pass is intercepted. Was deflected, then intercepted. Butler again with the interception.
And he's going in the stands. There he goes. The old Lambeau leap. He got it. Roy Butler, he got a torn bicep. He has a special thing on his right arm. They weren't sure if he could even play. And Brett Favre is probably the MVP of the first half. But if he isn't, I'll tell you, this guy right here, where Roy Butler is, the ball was deflected by Reggie White. He got in that lane, got the hand up, and Leroy Butler comes up with his second interception.
He's got a harness on his right arm so that he can't straighten it out all the way.
Yeah, but watch that leap.
The leap is good.
Yeah, that's a heck of a leap. He just jumped right into space, open space.
Just outside the 10. The Vikings stiffen. Levin stopped for maybe a yard lost.
Yeah, I don't know that you want to stiffen too much because I think what happens then that puts him in a passing situation, and that means that Brett Favre is going to throw again. Wouldn't be surprised if they would go. They're not doing it, but if they don't get a first down here or a touchdown here, go to that 5-wide receiver thing again, because Minnesota is having problem with their pass coverages down here in the red zone today.
He has thrown 5 touchdowns passes in a game once against the Bears. Here he is to throw again. He's chased. Just got rid of it. Just barely got rid of it. 11 times he has thrown for 4 or more in a game. 5 once, 10 times, 4 times. 4 touchdowns.
Well, Jimmy, there's John Randall, and he's going for the face. He was going for that thing that where your tongue slaps your brain, but he didn't get that kind of hit. He was trying to make his tongue do it. But this has to be frustrating for John Randall because he was so fired up and wanted to get after Brett Favre, and they were down 28-7.
Third And Favr fires the touchdown pass. Is caught in the end zone by Brooks, but there is a flag on the play.
And there's also a whistle, Pat. The whistle, for some reason, blew before Brett Favr threw that ball. So I would say that the penalty...
Prior to the snap, ball start, 87 offense. 5
Brooks
yards.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, it had to be against the offense where a false start, because when the false start happened, that killed the play. So the whistle blew, so there really was no play. And then the guy that did it, of course, was Robert Brooks.
So it brings down 3rd and goal from the 16-yard line.
Robert Brooks got a little anxious when he heard his number called.
11 seconds left to play in the first half. Packers 28, Minnesota 7. Favr back to throw it. Up, throws low. The ball didn't quite get to the receiver, Derek Mays. Favr under pressure. And they'll have the field goal unit come on.
Yeah, that's a sign of a competitor. I mean, a guy that, you know, gets upset when things don't go well, but, you know, instead of getting down, it makes him play better. I mean, they knocked him down a couple times. He comes up and he throws touchdown passes against them. Robert Brooks is explaining what he did on that pattern and why he didn't. You know, they did have the touchdown, and of course it was called back because Robert Brooks moved early.
Longwell's field goal from 34 yards out is good. And the Packers increase their lead to 31-7 with 3 seconds remaining in the first half. Beautiful day in Green Bay. It rained a little bit yesterday morning, cooled things off, and today is just perfect.
You know what happened? You know, you talk about the scene here, and you come in and you see big old brats and everyone's barbecuing, and Pam Oliver was out there with the fans. But you know what happened after you left the bus? There was a group came out there, and I swear, and they started a band, and they started playing a polka, and then people started dancing a polka right out in the parking lot. They were polkaing.
Did you join in?
No, but I thought, who in the heck polkas at 10 o'clock in the morning? Or 10:30?
Green Bay people.
Yeah, but they were there. I mean, there were families, there were kids polkaing. Everyone was polkaing.
The Dockers Khakis halftime report coming up. The guys are on the scene. They're here at Lambeau. Bouncing kickoff is juggled for a moment by Harold Morrow. And then he is hit down. That's the end of the first half with the score, Green Bay 31, Minnesota 7. Fox NFL Sunday will continue with the Dockers Khakis halftime report after these messages and a word from your local Fox station.
Dockers Halftime, brought to you by Dockers Khakis, the preferred khakis inside the red zone. Hey, nice pants.
And welcome back inside the Fox Television Center. Joe Buck, Bill Moss with you on the Dockers Halftime. We'll get you right back out to Green Bay, but it's worth a look. It's a record-setting day at Lambeau Field for Brett Favr.
Brett Favr connects with Antonio Freeman for a 28-yard touchdown. Favre's 153rd touchdown pass, a new Packers record. Bart Starr held it previously. Favr today at the half, 10 for 20, 153 yards, 4 touchdowns, only 1 interception.
And in case you're wondering, the record in one NFL game, 7 touchdown passes. Favr is on the move. It is an absolutely ugly day, not weather-wise in New England, but offensively for Chicago All-Patriots.
Drew Bledsoe off the hot start this season, 10 TD passes in 3 games, continues his streak today, 2 of them. 1 to Vincent Brisby here. Man-to-man coverage beat him, and again, right here, 52-yarders. Troy Brown, touchdown. New England. You can't blitz all day and not get beat, Joe.
This is a 14-0 New England Patriots lead. They have begun the third quarter up in Foxborough. Mike Ditka looking up to the heavens for some help. He's in a dome, but his prayers have been answered so far.
In the form of number 24, Mario Bates on the halfback pass. Touchdown, Andre Hastings. They're going to find a way to get it done, and Heath Schuler says, I went in on the action as well. Heath Schuler, his first touchdown pass to Darryl Hobbs of the season. Bates also ran for a 74-yard touchdown pass. Things are going well in New Orleans.
And things are going into the third quarter with the Saints out in front by 14. Kansas City at Carolina. Chiefs out in front by 7.
How do you beat the zone blitz? Throw zone passes, touchdown zone passes.
Makes all the sense in the world. Oakland at New York, 22-10. They're at the half, and the Raiders are out in front by 12 over Bill Parcells and crew, and the Ravens lead by 10 at the half in Tennessee.
How many people were at that game?
I think there are 3 left in the seats now in Memphis. You know who's waiting on the other side of this break. They're primping, getting ready. Big guys are coming. We go back to Lambeau Field, and the guys. The Dockers' halftime report continues.
The packed house here at Lambeau Field has plenty to cheer about at the half as the Packers all over the Vikings, 31-7 as we welcome you back field side. Ronnie Lott, Howie Long, and the question that was asked by the Blonde Bomber is, can the Blonde Bomber have a hat? Well, Terry Bradshaw has a hat. Ronnie, of course, being the consummate teammate. Hey, we talked about, we were dissecting a lot of problems that Green Bay was having prior to the start of the game. Terry, it's safe to say the Pack is back.
The Pack is back. Obviously, they've got it figured out inside the 20-yard line. What has happened primarily is the Vikings have gone to zone coverage. You go to zone coverage, you're going to get killed by a team that can throw the football like Green Bay. Vikings had control of this game early in the first quarter, very much like the Dolphins last week. But their inability to score, when Robert Smith went out of bounds on the 6-yard line, they missed a chip-shot field goal. Instead of being a 14-7, it's 7-all. And ever since then, Ronnie and Howie, it has been the Brett Favre show. These receivers, after dropping passes early, have come back and big catches and great quarterbacking by Favre.
Yeah, Brett Favre's a remarkable guy. And talking to John Madden yesterday, we talked about Brett Favre's ability to elude the rush. Many pass rush breakdowns the first 2 games. Here we see Brett Favre shuck off the oncoming rush. He's a threat to throw and run at the same time. Great athletic ability. The ensuing play amounts to a touchdown. Brett Favre's back, and he's ready to take somebody's lunch money, Ronnie.
Oh, he's giving somebody's lunch money. He's taking a lot of lunch money, especially that free safety. If you look at the free safety right now, free safety's having a tough time. And if you look on this play right here, the receiver's able to go up the seam right here. The free safety, Orlando Thomas, is not able to get over. And you got to get over when you play against Brett Favre. You got to read him. And right there, you didn't take anything away. Now look at Robert Griffin, the free safety. We got another receiver running up the seam. He has to get over there. Brett Favre looks off. And I can tell you right now, I played against Brett Favre. Believe me, I've been in the same situation. He's beat me a lot of times. Howie, he looks like he's still selling what now?
Candy.
Candy, okay. Very politely. When we come back, Pat Summerall and John Madden will join you for the second half after this.
You're watching Fox NFL Sunday.
Back at Lambeau Field, both teams headed back to the sideline. Green Bay leading Minnesota 31-7. Minnesota traditionally has been a team that gave the Packers a lot of problems. Mike Holmgren, as we talked about in the beginning of the broadcast, not happy with the way the Packers had been beginning games. They haven't been able to get anything going. He should be happy.
Well, he's probably still not happy about the way they began the game. I mean, if you think of the first quarter, it was all Minnesota Vikings. In fact, until Robert Smith stepped out of bounds there, that would have been 14-7. But it was about the second quarter. I mean, and the Packers came out, and Brett Favre got hot, and he got the pass protection, and the Minnesota Vikings were trying to zone the end zone. He had guys wide open and just ate them up. And so it was about the Packers maybe being a little over-anxious early and then coming out there in that second quarter and just destroying the Minnesota Vikings.
We were talking about the one thing, the one person in the NFL that Brett Favre mentioned that he might fear, and that was John Randall. And do you think he has reason to fear him?
Well, you know, of course he has the score. He's up 31-7, but John Randall is one of those guys that he was going to get Brett Favre, and he was going to get him early, and he was going to get him often, and he did get him early. And I think maybe that was the reason for the Packers' slow start because they were smacking Brett Favr around, but Brett Favr did get control of it in that second quarter.
And the Vikings kickoff is going to be handled by Schrader. Schrader is hit down to 20 in the fumble. The Vikings saying we have it. And a lot of them indicate we have it. Nobody in the striped shirt, and now somebody in the striped shirt. One of the officials indicates that Randall did fumble, that Schrader did fumble, and the Vikings do have it.
And that's what Denny Green and the Vikings had to talk about when they went in there is, okay, man, the second quarter, we got whipped. We got to come out there and make something happen right off the bat. And right off the bat means your special teams. You need guys flying down there. When you're down 31-7, you have to do things like that. You have to put your helmet on the ball. You have to try and strip. You have to do those kinds of things in all areas, not just your offense, your defense and your special teams. So they get their first big play from their special team.
Recovered by Leonard Wheeler. First and 10 Minnesota, just inside the Green Bay 19. Robert Smith to the 15 and just across.
The other thing the Vikings probably, talked about is you can't look at the score when you first come out in your first series in the second half. You just have to get things started again. So they probably want to start the game about the same plan that they started the first quarter. So they want to play this third quarter like they played the first quarter.
2nd and 6. Green Bay 31-7 over Minnesota. Smith hit and knocked backwards. Hit by Santana Dotson. He's a guy who's not big. He's tall and sort of gangly looking, but a great athlete.
Yeah, and he goes perfectly with Gilbert Brown in there, because when Gilbert Brown is in there, he's the run stopper. He's the guy that is going to stuff the run. And then Santana Dotson is the athlete. He's the guy that makes those moves. He goes in the hole sideways, does all those kinds of things, and gets a lot of penetration.
3rd and 5. 3 wide receivers for Minnesota. Brad Johnson looked right. Gets one of the receivers. And should have enough for a first down. That's Chris Carter.
Hey, one thing, this Green Bay defense, after the first part of the game, really has controlled the receivers of the Minnesota Vikings, Jake Reed and Chris Carter. It looks like early they were having their way with them, and then they calmed down, and then they started making some plays on defense. And then, of course, once the Green Bay offense got the ball, then they put the 31 points on the board.
As Green Bay defensive coach Rick Sherman, that's Evans to about the 5.
You hear all that grunting going down. That's where you get your strength. I mean, the guys, you say, why do they do it? An offensive lineman, when he ties into a defensive lineman, and when a defensive lineman ties into an offensive lineman, there's always a grunt. And because that's where, you're trying to get underneath the other guy's pads, and that's where you get your strength. I mean, you get your extra power with the grunt. Now watch all the grunt. Every time you hit, you're going to hear the grunts.
Ball at the 4-yard line. 2nd down, Smith. Trying to get around the corner. Slips out of a couple of tacklers and gets to about the 2.5-yard line.
See, you hear Wayne Simmons on the end there just going, at the end. That gets that extra punch. Watch him. Here's Wayne Simmons here, 59. He'll be coming down the line of scrimmage. He comes off the tight end, come right down here. Now watch him when he makes that hit. You see that grunt is the thing that gives him right there, gives him that extra explosion that knocks the guy out of bounds. If you can't grunt, you can't explode.
He'll make it 3rd down. They need explosion right now. 3rd and goal at the 4 wide receivers. No running back. Touchdown to Chris Carter. Got the great hands.
And the Vikings, again, you go back to the first quarter, they had things going, they had things started. And here you're going to see Chris Carter. And he's just going to come in. They have 3 wide receivers on this side. Chris Carter just comes right in here on a slant, and he's covered. Pryor was there with him, but Pryor had his back to the quarterback, and Brad Johnson just threw it right over Pryor's head.
Chris Carter's 80th career touchdown. The 10th player in NFL history with 80 or more. From Johnson to Carter. 31.
NFL Sunday is brought to you by Isuzu, builders of the completely reinvented 1998 Isuzu Rodeo. Isuzu, go farther. By the U.S. Navy. Navy, let the journey begin. By 7-Eleven. Oh, thank heaven for 7-Eleven. And by Kinko's, the new way to office.
31-14. This is Chris Darkins this time to return the kickoff. Stopped at about the 17 or 18.
You know what the Minnesota Vikings did on that kickoff is they faked an onside kick, and then they just kicked a normal kick. When you have a kicker like Greg Davis who doesn't get a lot of leg in the ball, you try and do those things to confuse a return team. They've done that a couple times to Green Bay, and that is one thing that has worked for them.
11:44 left in the third quarter. 31-14, Green Bay leading the Vikings. Brett Favr gives to Dorsey Levin. Levin looking for running room and doesn't find much. Dixon Edwards made the stop.
You know, Chris Carter is so good in that area. You know, we talk about the red zone anytime you get inside the 20 and you're going in. You know, I don't know that there's anyone any better than Chris Carter because he's a big target.
Yep.
And he just has a feel. I mean, he's big and strong. He's not real fast, but he's big and strong, and he has a feel for bumping guys around and getting between a defender and the quarterback so the quarterback has a target in the end zone.
And he has great leaping ability. On second down, Favr back to throw it. Pass is deflected and picked off by the Vikings, Jason Fisk. And Minnesota back in business on offense again.
Jason Fisk is the nose tackle, and you'll see he's going to be dropping out. Here's Jason Fisk back here. Now, he doesn't knock the ball down, but this is what you call a zone blitz. You see, he starts to go back. Did you see him go back? And then the ball is tipped right there by Derek Alexander. And again, Fisk, who is a defensive lineman on a zone blitz, he goes back and he becomes a linebacker. Now watch him here. Now watch him as he drops back. Watch 72. You see him come out. Now he's a linebacker. And he just gets that interception. Big old nose tackle. Ending up in his zone blitz as a linebacker and picking one off.
First and 10. Johnson to throw it. Swings it outside to Smith. Robert Smith inside the 10. Knocked out of bounds at about the 8. Make it the 7-yard line. It'll be first and goal from there for Minnesota.
Yeah, we always talk about a zone blitz and does it work or not, and you always assume that the blitzing part has worked, but that time the zone part worked, where the 300-pound nose tackle was back playing in a zone. Of course, it was a tip ball, but he picked it off.
First and goal at the 7. Brad Johnson has Robert Smith deep. Fakes the handoff to him. Fires incomplete. There's a flag in the end zone.
Yeah, and they're calling it a touchdown.
Jake Reed was interfered with. Made the catch.
Number 59. Penalty decline.
Penalty decline, and Jake Reed came down with it.
Well, we talk about Jake Reed, you know, being such a big, strong guy, and we're talking about Carter being a big target in the end zone. So is Jake Reed. But when you're big and strong, these are the kind of plays that you can make. That was a touchdown. There was also a penalty, and of course you turn down the penalty when you get a touchdown.
And they're going to go for 2. Carter goes right. Reed comes left with Walsh. Brad Johnson has Smith deep. Gives to, I beg your pardon, not Smith, it's Evans. And Evans gets the 2 points.
That's not bad for the Vikings. They've scored a touchdown, 2 touchdowns, and a 2-point play in 1:33 seconds.
And they've narrowed the thing to 9 points, 31-22.
You know, we always talk about a cutback, and watch here. when Charles Evans starts, he's going to start here, then he sees a hole back to this side and cuts right back in it. This is a two-point play. This is a cutback. See, he's going to the right. Look at that big hole on the backside. Once he sees it, he goes to the cutback and takes it.
Again, the Vikings fake that onside kick. The Packers have to honor that and come up. This is Chris Dawkins again to return the kickoff, and he's stopped short of the 20. Hard to set up a kickoff return when they fake the onside kick every time.
Yeah, you can't do it, and that's what happens because the Packers have to come up in an onside prevent. And then when it's not an onside kick, then they try and get back into their regular return.
Doug Evans over on the sideline, stretching. 1st and 10 Green Bay from their own 19-yard line. 31-22. All of a sudden, what looked like a blowout gets closer.
Well, the Vikings played the first quarter well also.
Yeah, they did. Levens to the line of scrimmage. Maybe a yard.
Let's just watch that kickoff again, Pat. And you see when they go to the shift, then that puts these guys in a shift. You see how the Packers all come up? They have to get in this position for an onside kick because there's a possibility of an onside kick. Now they fake the onside kick. Then when they kick the regular kick, then these guys aren't in a position to get into a blocking formation. It's a heck of a move.
It is. I don't know that I've ever seen that done before.
Not a bad idea because if you don't honor the onside, they can just kick an onside kick.
2nd and 8. Here's Favr. Man open is Freeman. That same pattern where he just runs straight down the field between the safety and the corner.
Yeah, in a zone defense, you either have to get a real pass rush and not let the quarterback get the ball, or you have to bump these guys. But if you don't get a bump in a zone and you let guys run free in a zone with a quarterback who can throw the ball on a rope like Brett Favr, you are going to get killed. And I don't know that the Vikings shouldn't go to some man-to-man or change up some zones, or at least to go to some zones where they get these guys bumped.
11 on 1st down. Stopped by Randall right now for a McDonald's game break. Let's return to Joe Buck at the Fox Television Center in Hollywood.
Thank you, Pat. Down in New Orleans, Heath Schuler has thrown for a touchdown. This is his first ever rushing touchdown in the NFL. 5 yards, 28-7 lead. Mike Ditka saying, I told you I could make him a quarterback. Now get out of my face, Pat and John.
Boy, after watching that New Orleans team last week against the 49ers and seeing now what they're doing to Detroit, that's a shocker.
Last week they were inept.
5 to Freeman. On the money. Covered by Washington.
Antonio Freeman gets up with a divot in his head. Now you're talking football. When you have to pull stuff out of your helmet after a catch, that is football. That was pretty good coverage, though, by Dwayne Washington. I mean, that wasn't his own. Here's Dwayne Washington, and this is Brett Favr throwing the ball. I mean, Dwayne Washington is there. He makes the cut with him. He's right there. He has the hand up there, and Brett Favr just makes a perfect throw to Antonio Freeman.
He took the divot with his helmet. Freeman has 6 catches. Levens. Henderson rumbles inside the 15 to the 14 from Favr.
Brett Favr is so good that he can take the momentum away from you and just take it back himself, and that's exactly what he's doing here. I mean, that throw to Antonio Freeman was really something. And then he gets Henderson. He's a fullback in the I formation. He just runs right through, becomes the first back, and he just hits him right over the middle.
Henderson goes about 250.
He said he'd rather block than run. That you get hit more, and it's a good point. You get hit more as a runner than you do as a blocker.
3 wide receivers set up this time for the Pack. Levens is the back. And a handoff is to Dorsey Levens. He spins inside the 10. An explosive offensive unit.
You know, and sometimes you wonder, you look at this offense and you say, is this a great offense or is this just an offense with a great quarterback? And I don't know that it's not a pretty good offense with a good coach in Mike Holmgren and a great quarterback. And I think it's more about the great quarterback than it is about the offense.
I think the wide receivers are also very good.
Especially when the ball's put in your hands like that.
Here's Favr. Gets it outside to Levens. And Levens to the 5. About a yard short of a first down.
You know, Robert Brooks was out there in front, and the minute that action started around him, he was blocking, and he took his right leg and pulled it right out of the ground. You know, he just pulled his right leg up, took the foot out of the ground because there was no way that he was going to get that knee while blocking, and a lot of them do get it there.
That's how he got it originally.
Watch him here. Now he's going to be blocking, and he's going to be around the pile. Now watch once he sees he's like, you see that right leg go up in the air?
Yep.
He is not going to get caught with his foot in the ground.
3rd and 1. To the 1. Orlando Thomas made the stop.
And Robert Griffith came over the top too, but I think that's probably what William Anderson was talking about, how much more you get hit when you carry the ball than you do as a blocker, because Levens really got it at the end of that run. Someone asked him, he said, what do you do about it when you get tired? He said, I don't know. He said, I don't know what to do when you get tired.
I've worked on that thing.
Yeah. If you can figure that one out, you tell me.
2 tight ends. Touchdown Summerall this time. 5 touchdown passes for Brett Favr.
That's what a competitor does. That's what a fighter does. You know, I mean, he gets a punch and he counters the punch, and that's exactly what Brett Favr did. He got a couple of punches by the Minnesota Vikings. They scored 2 touchdowns. They make a 2-point play. Brett Favr just takes his team down, right down the field. Boom, boom, boom. Finds his big tight end, Mark Chimura, in the end zone to end it.
5 touchdown passes ties his career high. The extra point is good. And it's 38-22. Green Bay over Minnesota. 38-22 Green Bay. Favr is 15 out of 26 for 222 yards, 5 touchdowns. Pretty good day's work. Robert Tate will start from the 4, and this time he has some room. Out of bounds at about the 39. Darren Sharper knocked him out of bounds. 38-22 with 4.5 minutes left in the 3rd quarter. That's cheese.
Yeah, you wonder when you see the cheese, you wonder where it's made. Well, it's made here in Wisconsin. You wonder how it's made. You're seeing it now. That's mozzarella right there, I think. This factory here, Pat, makes 60,000 pounds of this a day. And that's making some cheese.
A lot of it's on your bus.
I know it. And then I had, on my bus, I had a whole load of cheese in the cheese head. So then you eat the cheese, and after you eat the cheese, then you put the rest of it on your head.
That's Robert Smith. Picked up about 8 or 9. Stopped by Eugene Robinson.
Yeah, there's a guy who's been a big addition for this Packer defense, Eugene Robinson, and he's kind of the guy that, you know, Fritz Shermer says he manages our defense. He's the talker. He's the guy back there that, you know, gets everyone in place, gets in formation, gets all those things. And some of the things that Ron Wolf has done with this team and bringing in players, sometimes you don't get to talk about the Eugene Robinson, but that's a big deal.
Smith into Packer territory about the 43-yard line. Tyrone Williams made the stop. Robert Smith, who averages, as I said earlier, about 8 yards a carry so far this year. If he can stay healthy,
and
over 100.
And if the Vikings can get a better defense where they can stop someone and not get behind, because the way to take someone out of a running game is just to get so far ahead that the run doesn't mean anything.
Here's Smith again, chased to the sideline and cut down out of bounds. Got only about a yard that time. Tyrone Williams on the stop. Denny Green said we have to be able to control the clock. We have to be able to run the ball. They did in the first quarter.
Yeah, and they won the first quarter, and then the turning point was when Robert Smith broke away. It looked like he was going to score a touchdown. In fact, it looked like he did score a touchdown, but he stepped out of bounds on the 7-yard line, or was forced out of bounds by Leroy Butler, and they didn't get anything out of that. And then, boom, the Packers took over from that point on.
Johnson throws, pass complete. Jake Reed. Stopped by Tyrone Williams, but Jake Reed is just too big.
And if they play that defense, if they play Tyrone Williams man-to-man on Jake Reed like this, here's Tyrone Williams, here's Jake Reed, he will run this all day long. And if they don't give Williams any help, and again, it's just a guessing thing, he can hit that thing, and Brad Johnson will hit him on that 5th step every time, just like that.
I'm impressed with Brad Johnson. And you have to be impressed with Robert Smith. Brad Johnson, as John Madden said earlier, only started 7 games at Florida State in his collegiate career. Robert Smith, he doesn't look like he would weigh 212, does he?
Well, because he has those long muscles, and those, I mean, he doesn't have the thick, bulging muscle, but he has the long muscles, and those are the ones that, let you make those kinds of moves.
Evans is the ball carrier this time, and the last surge carries him down close to first down yardage.
And Brad Johnson had that old fake again. He handed off and went back, and he faked that old jump pass. He has that Brett Favre thing. Brett Favre started that, and I think he's just kind of passing it around the league.
They move the sticks.
But it is fun. If you watch a high school game, watch Brad Johnson here after he hands off. You see, he goes, he fakes the old jump pass. You go to a high school game now, and you'll see all the high school quarterbacks are doing that, and college quarterbacks.
When's the last time you saw anybody really throw a jump pass? Johnson taken down from behind by Santana Dotson.
Oh, he's giving the old grave digger. That's Gilbert Brown's move. Santana Dotson takes Gilbert Brown's move. Here's Santana Dotson right now. We're talking about what an athlete he is and how he can get his body in different positions. You see, he just gives that rip with his right arm, splits the guard and tackle, goes right through him, and gets to Brad Johnson. It was like we've had enough of this stuff of Brad Johnson throwing the ball.
2nd and 13. That was big. Gilbert Brown over on the sideline. Here's Brad Johnson back to throw it again. Flag on the play. Pass is finally caught by Chris Carter. Johnson down.
Yeah, by Santana Dotson again.
Flag on the play and a penalty against Minnesota.
Johnson did have some time on that, and it was right at the end that his protection broke down and Dotson got there.
Offense, number 73. 10-yard penalty.
Todd Stussy is number 73.
Yeah, he's not the guy that Todd Stussy's over here. He's the left tackle. Santana Dotson was the guy that got there, so it wasn't Stussy's guy. But again, you see Stussy there. I guess he tackled his guy right in front of the quarterback, though.
And right in front of the official.
Yeah, but that looked like pretty good pass protection to me. And part of it was, I mean, he was on top of him. The guy was going down, and he just drove him down into the ground. Gilbert Brown's back in the game now. Darius Holland has really played most of the game in his position.
Holland still playing. That's Robert Smith, who gets it down to about the 20 before Roderick Mullen brings him down. He slipped a couple of tacklers and got some extra yardage out of it.
Yeah, Wayne Simmons had him all zeroed in, and he still doesn't know. Wayne Simmons walking around with his head down there figuring how the heck did he missed this tackle, because he had him zeroed in, he had him squared up, and he looked like he was wrapping his arms, and he went right through it. He still got his head down.
And that's the end of the third quarter with the score: Green Bay 38, Minnesota 22. And Fox NFL Sunday will continue after these messages and a word from your local Fox station. Lambeau Field in Green Bay. At Summerall with John Madden, 38-22. The Packers leading the Vikings. But the Vikings down at the Packer 23rd and 11. 1 quarter left. Brad Johnson, the Packers blitz. Johnson fires. Carter made the reception. He well short of a first down. Eugene Robinson made the tackle.
That was a good tackle. We talked about how valuable Eugene Robinson is. You know, that's a big tackle there because that could be a 4-point play. And, you know, again, assuming that they make the field goal here, because that forced the Minnesota Vikings, instead of getting a first down and being able to, you know, go for a touchdown, it's forcing them to try a field goal here. And with 14 minutes left to go in the third quarter, you do have to kick a field goal in this situation.
From 31 yards away, Greg Davis will attempt. He missed one shorter, but this one he hits. And it's 38-25. The Packers lead Minnesota. Minnesota's had the ball twice in the second half. They've scored both times, a touchdown and a field goal. Again, they're up in that position to try the onside kick, and now they back out of it. And Davis kicks off. Darkin tripped up just as he crossed the 20. And the Viking defense heads on the field. Green Bay takes over.
Fox NFL Sunday is brought to you by Oldsmobile and your local Oldsmobile retailer. By Miller Lite, now official beer sponsor of the NFL. By Priority Mail from the U.S. Postal Service. And by MetLife. Get Met. Get paid.
Minnesota on defense. The Packers 38-25 leaders. Here's Favr to throw it. Gets rid of it. That one's on the bounce. Incomplete. Freeman, the intended receiver.
Yeah, you look at Brett Favre and his first 2 years with Green Bay. He had 37 touchdowns, 37 interceptions. And then in his last 3 years, of course, 2 of those were MVP in the league. 119 touchdowns, 44 interceptions. And I remember when Mike Holmgren said that he went to camp like 4 years ago and said the thing we have to do is we have to get more touchdowns and we have to limit those interceptions.
Remember, they didn't draft him. They got him from Atlanta. Brooks to the 46, tripped up by Griffith.
Yeah, that had to be one of the Packers' biggest moves and one of Ron Wolf's best moves that he's ever made in his life when he picked up Brett Favre from the Atlanta Falcons. Watch Robert Brooks out here. Again, he's going to come under a stop. He stopped. He was running just a little hook, and then Brett Favre saw him, and they communicate so well. That wasn't a pattern. I mean, he was trying to find a hole in his zone. He didn't find anything, and then he saw Brett Favre looking at him, and he just made a slant out of it. 5
catches for Brooks for 92 yards. He and Freeman both have had big days. Here's Favre, 11. Dorsey, 11. Got a couple.
Yeah, the frustrating thing for Minnesota has to be now is trying to get the ball back without having the Green Bay Packers score, because in the second half, the Vikings have had 3 possessions and they've had 3 scores. So I know what Denny Green is thinking now. We got to get the ball back, but we don't want to get it back as a result of the Packers having scored another touchdown.
Packers go with 2 tight ends, Thomason and Summerall. Wide receivers come left. The Viking blitz gets to Favre.
Boy, that's a jailbreak. Did you see that? I mean, they just collapsed that whole pocket. That's a pocket collapsing. But watch Brett Favre when he gets back here, and watch how this whole thing just collapses right in front of him. See, they have that eagle look, and they got the stunt, the blitz up the middle. There's the blitzer, and then there's 4 guys hitting Brett Favre at the same time. Now, that is what you call a collapsed pocket, all started by a blitz. Watch, there's 4 guys all arriving at number 4 at about the same time.
That makes it 3rd down and about 16, 17 maybe. Summerall was the man in motion. Here's Favr back to throw it. Going deep to Freeman. Caught by Freeman and then juggled and then incomplete. Dwayne Washington was with him.
And Freeman had Dwayne Washington beaten. He was beyond him. Watch him here. Here's Freeman here. Here's Dwayne Washington here. Washington is looking into the backfield, and he lets Freeman run right by him.
No pattern.
No, and then Brett Favr just throws it right in his hand,
yep.
and then Washington did make a recovery, and as Freeman was trying to bring it in, he hit him and knocked it out of there.
That's just the fly. The old-fashioned take off and run as hard as you can, as long as you can. Hendrick's kick is a bomb. Fair catch. It's caught at the 10-yard line by Palmer, and the Vikings have 90 yards to go. (38-25) Minnesota ball at their own 10-yard line. The Packers leading after a big second quarter. Put them in charge of the game. Favr red hot all day long with a couple of wild times early.
Yeah, Brad Johnson's been pretty hot this second half. He's 7 out of 7. He hasn't thrown an incomplete yet.
The handoff is to Smith. And right now for a McDonald's game break. Let's return to Joe Buck at the Fox Television Center in Hollywood.
Pat and John in New Orleans. Mario Bates has thrown for 1, run for 2. This one good for 1. He has a career-high 152 yards today. Under 6 to play. And New Orleans looking for win number 1, leading 35-10. Pat and John.
At Lambeau Field, it's 2nd and 6, 38-25. Minnesota leading, Minnesota trailing Green Bay. That's Smith again. Nothing doing. Leroy Butler. Lost the yard.
For a guy that has a torn bicep, Butler is all over the place, isn't he? He said, the only thing he was worried about is, is if he's going to be able to handle or control the pain. And it doesn't look like it's bothering him at all. He tore the bicep right in this part of the bicep, right in the middle of the bicep, of course, on his other arm. You see he has a brace on that. They're not going to do any surgery or anything to it now.
Big down, Minnesota. Johnson has Jake Reed, and he has the first down. Sharper knocked him out of bounds.
We haven't heard a lot of Reggie White, and you see him here on this play. He's been going against Corey Stringer. Here he's going against the tight end, and he just is going to be double teamed there, but not much of an effort there. Reggie looks like he's starting to get a little tired out there because this defense has been on the field for a long time.
Stringer and the tight end is a little discouraging. 2 tight ends this time. Carter goes in motion. Johnson gets it out to Chris Carter, who leans forward and picks up a couple of extra yards with that lean. He tried to get it past the first down marker, didn't make it.
Like I was saying, the Vikings have really been effective with their second half possessions. They just need more of them, because you can see the first time they had the ball, 6 plays, touchdown. Second time, 2 plays, touchdown. And then the last time they got a field goal, so they've had the ball 3 times. This is the 4th, and they got 3 scores.
38-25. That's Evans trying to get the first down. Looks like he has it.
And the other thing, in addition to that, Brad Johnson hasn't thrown an incomplete pass in this second half. So if the Vikings can get the ball, and again, this is what Denny Green has to be thinking about. If we can get the ball, we can move against this Packer defense. We just have to have the ball and then not have, Brett Favr go crazy the way he's been going crazy.
Keep him off the field. 1st and 10. That's Smith. And Robert Smith runs for another first down into Packer territory. Mullen knocked him out of bounds. Today's game is being produced by Bob Stinner, directed by Sandy Grossman. The associate director is Mike Roy. Broadcast associates Fran Morrison and Charles McDonald. The technical producer is Bob Mueller. Studio was produced by Scott Ackerson, directed by Bob Levy. The senior producer is Bill Brown. And the executive producers of Fox Sports are Ed Gorin and David Hill.
That's a lot of guys.
Yep. Here's Johnson. That's Jake Reed. That's a first down.
We talk about Favre being out, and Johnson is now 10 for 10 in this half. Look again, anytime you get these big receivers and they can get one-on-one with no underneath help, they are going to make plays. I mean, they're just going to cut in front of guys. They're just going to, cut in, take hooks, take everything because of those big bodies. But that was their plan, is to work on Tyrone Williams and work on the, on that right side of their offense.
Johnson gives to Smith. Smith. He can get 5 yards. And it looks like he's getting nothing.
Well, it doesn't take a lot of steps for Robert Smith to get 5 yards. I mean, he just goes boom, boom, and then he takes those long strides, and he's 5 yards in like 2 or 3 steps. I mean, some guys with shorter legs and shorter strides, it takes them like 10 steps to get 5 yards. It takes him like 3 steps to get 5 yards.
He's got 129 yards today. 2nd and 5. We'll get another attempt. Flag on the play as he rolled down inside the 30. A late flag, and Smith is slow getting up.
And it's going to be holding against the Minnesota Vikings. That was called by the referee. And the referee is like 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage. He doesn't usually call a lot of holding.
Offense number 62. 10-yard penalty. Repeat, 2nd down.
Called against Jeff Christie, the center.
Yeah, that's usually not a call. And here's Jeff Christie right here, the center. That's usually not a call by the referee. And you can see, I don't know what the referee saw either. He was too far away. The referee's way back here. He doesn't even make the picture. I mean, he's way back here. And when that play happened, he's 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage. He was 15 yards away from that play.
Must have been his time to write a ticket. Brad Johnson pump fake. Pass is caught by Jake Reed. And he's in bounds.
And they made up for it. They got that penalty, and Brad Johnson came right back and threw it out there to Jake Reed and made up for it. The Packers are going to a lot of 3-man line and blitzing. Watch the pass protection over here. Good pass protection by Todd Stussy, and in fact, he's still pass protected him now. But his pass protection let Brad Johnson step up and throw the ball out there to the left.
11 in a row by Johnson. He's looking deep for Reed. Touchdown. Jake Reed.
Jake Reed is just too big and too strong. And you can cover him. You can have a guy there. You can have the coverage. Tyrone Williams is right there with him. Brad Johnson wasn't going to throw there. He was going to throw over the middle, and he came back, and again, strong arm, but the big target. Here's Tyrone Williams right here. Here's Jake Reed. You see Jake Reed is so big, he gets by him. Once he gets by him, he wants the ball. And he just gets that left hand and gets a little push, makes a heck of a catch.
9 catches, 119 yards by Jake Reed, 2 touchdowns.
And Brad Johnson's been perfect this second half.
12 in a row. And it's 38-32. Green Bay leading. 12 for 12 for Brad Johnson in this quarter, in this half. Back again, Pat Summerall with John Madden, 38-32 Green Bay, and they fake one more time the onside kick.
And that brings Green Bay's kick return up for an onside prevent. See them all up there?
And then Greg Davis deep to Darkin. Flag on the play as Dawkins has some room and is finally brought down outside the 45-yard line. Good return, but there's a penalty marker down. Holding against Green Bay.
I was just going to say, I bet this one will be called back, because anytime you see a flag on a punt or kickoff return, it's usually against the return team.
Holding during the return, number 43, 10-yard penalty, first down.
Randy Kinder was the man call for holding. 38-32, 6.5 minutes left. There is the head man of the Vikings, Denny Green. And his team has quietly gotten himself in a position to win this game.
Well, as you look at that score, 38-32, the Vikings could win with a touchdown. You think back to that 2-point play was big.
Antonio Freeman from Favr gets the reception.
Remember when the Vikings went for it for 2 points, and now they're only 6 points down. But the thing that Denny Green is thinking now, not so much about that 2-point play, but he's thinking about getting the ball back, because they know and they've proven that if they have the ball, they can move it, because they've scored every time they've had the ball in the second half. So they know if they can get the ball, they can score. So the big thing is, can they get the ball now away from Brett Favr?
11 gets up past the 45 for a Packer first down and more.
You see the guy that he patted on his head is a guy right here, his fullback. Here's Levens right here. His fullback is William Henderson, number 30. When he got up, he patted him on the head, and for that reason right there. See, Henderson made the block that sprung him, and he followed Henderson right through the hole, and then when Henderson made contact, he broke right off that block.
Two tight ends set up for Green Bay. First down and 10. Flag on the play. The whistle blows.
Yeah, I think Aaron Taylor, the left guard, moved for the Packers. And again, when you're blocking a John Randall, that will make you do that sometimes.
False start offense, 73. 5-yard penalty. Still first down.
Aaron Taylor.
Dorsey Levens talks about, how tired he gets, but there are a lot of guys that play better when they're tired, and he could be one of them. Look, in the first half this season, he's rushed for 100 yards, and in the second half, he's rushed for 266 yards.
Second down and 15. Two tight ends for Green Bay. Vikings fake the blitz. Maybe they're coming. And Favr, I believe, read it. He gets away and gets sandwiched. As he got close to the line of scrimmage, the pocket collapsed.
You notice one thing about the Minnesota Vikings, when they get Favr, they don't just let one guy get him. And when they get him that first hit, boom, 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 boom. There's going to be 3 or 4 guys on him every time. And if someone will slow him up or just get him a little, I know that their plan has to be, look, if we get him, get everyone on him. Coach Fazio looking for a good defense.
Packers put in extra receivers. The Vikings put in extra defensive backs. 2nd and 14. 4 wide receivers.
Now the Vikings better get some bumps, because they haven't gotten bumps against these 4 wide receivers.
Derek Mays made the reception. He got 6 yards. Dwayne Washington made the stop.
And he was the guy that was off. They were up on the slots and off on the corners. And so that was the guy that they were going to hit with the slant, was where they're off. Mike Holmgren, of course, calls the plays for the Green Bay Packers. He's already called the play for this down. And when he was looking at his chart, he's looking at a play for the next down if they get a first down. He's already called that 3rd down play.
3rd and 9. The clock is still running with 3:20 left. 38-32 the score. 3 wide receivers. The tight end Summerall is to the right. That's Freeman in motion. Favr gets away from the blitz, and now he's down. And the Packers will have to punt. Wayne Rudd made the initial contact.
The guy that made that play was Fernando Smith.
Right.
He kind of played nose tackle, and he got the penetration. He's the first guy. You're going to see Fernando Smith is right here. Now watch him. He runs right by Jeff Dollenbach, and he gets penetration here, and that's the thing that gets Favr out of this. See the penetration? He almost got Favr as he was going back. Then that made Favr scramble.
And Brady comes over for the last takedown, and Favr doesn't care for that.
Brady, of course, was a teammate. Brady played for the Green Bay Packers.
Hendrick's kick is a high kick. Palmer signals fair catch and makes it at the 14-yard line. Special guest stars Jeff Gordon, Rusty Wallace, and Mark Martin. See the world's best drivers when they take you behind the scenes of NASCAR. The world premiere of the movie Steel Chariots, Tuesday at 7 Central on Fox. The Vikings take over at their own 15, 38-32. The Packers lead.
You know, the Packers haven't been able to stop the Vikings in this second half. This is the 5th time the Vikings have had the ball, but on their 4 previous possessions, they've scored again 3 touchdowns and a field goal. So they've scored this half every time they've had the ball.
Robert Smith. A couple. Santana Dotson on the bottom of the pile.
This is what I was just saying here, that if you look, they got on the 19, they scored, they got the ball on the Green Bay 24, they scored a touchdown, their own 39, they scored a field goal. Now they're starting, and then on their own 10, they scored a touchdown. It's the 5th time they've had the ball.
Smith got 3 at 2nd and 7. Brad Johnson back to throw. In the middle, the pass is caught by the tight end, Andy Glover. Or Glover. Now we're going to get the 2-minute warning. And the Vikings get out of the hole and move the ball up close to midfield. Back at Lambeau Field, Pat Summerall with John Madden. 2 minutes left, 38-32. Brad Johnson has hit 13 out of 13 in the second half, 3 touchdowns. The Vikings have gained 208 yards passing and 185 yards running. Almost 400 yards against this Green Bay defense. Johnson to Smith. Again, he fakes that jump pass. Smith runs out of bounds.
Yeah, Johnson's just going to have to go back and throw the ball because he hasn't thrown an incomplete ball this second half. And you talk about hot quarterbacks. We've seen a hot quarterback. We've seen one on both sides.
Yes,
Brett Favr and his touchdown passes today. And in this second half, this Brad Johnson's just amazing.
Green Bay with 6 defensive backs, and Johnson back to throw it. Going deep, and he's got the man open. He just missed. Jay Breed behind him and high. That's the first one he's missed in this half.
If Rich Shermer's thinking, what the heck do I have to do with these receivers? And I know what he has to do. You better double Jake Reed and you better double Chris Carter. Andrew Glover did catch 1 pass, but the tight end only caught 1 pass all day today. And I think if they're going to do something, they have to stop. If the Packer defense is going to do, they have to stop Chris Carter and Jake Reed, because if the Vikings are going to make a big play, it's going to be with one of those guys.
3rd and 10, and watch those 2 outside receivers. 3rd and 10. A late blitz by the Packers. And the pass is overthrown. Intended for Chris Carter. The blitz almost got to Brad Johnson.
You see, the Packers have been using a lot of 3-man line and then bringing 1 or 2. That time they brought pressure from the backside. Brad Johnson got hit just as he threw that ball.
4th and 10.
I don't know that the Vikings have to do this. I think that on 4th and 10, with this much time, 1:45, and having all your timeouts, you could punt the ball here. I don't know that they have to do an all or none thing here. In fact, I don't think they have to.
Here's Johnson back to throw. Reggie White with the pressure. And the pass is intercepted. Reggie White got there at the last second. The ball was not intercepted. It hit the ground, but Reggie White caused whatever happened.
Reggie White has been causing whatever happened and making things happen for so many years. Here he is against Corey Stringer, and he just runs, gets on his outside shoulder, and he beats him with speed, and he hits Brad Johnson just as he throws that ball. That wasn't an interception.
Was not an interception. The ball hit the ground. The Packers take over.
But you know, now, without second guessing, I think that the Vikings should have punted there, because they would have gotten a timeout, a change of possession, plus they had 3 timeouts. You saw what happened in that play. Reggie White hit him and knocked the ball out of his hand as he threw it.
And now the Vikings have to call timeouts after every play until they're out. Levens stopped at midfield, and now the Vikings take the timeout. Derek Alexander made the stop. A minute 32 left to play. 38-32, Green Bay. Reggie White. Sometimes you think that maybe he lost a step, but whenever need be, he regains it.
And he regained it on that 4th down play when he hit Brad Johnson as he was throwing the ball.
Here's Robbins. And the Vikings again take a timeout.
And now all the Packers have to do is get a first down. See, once a team, you always want to save your timeouts, which the Vikings did, and you want to use them in 3 so you can get the ball back. But if the other team gets a first down after you start using your timeouts, then it's over. So if you're a Viking fan, then you want them to stop them on this down. The Packers, of course, need a first down.
So it's 3rd down and 7. The Vikings have one more timeout left.
And I still go back to that 4th down situation and not thinking that they had to go for it on 4th down. I think a punt would have been a good play, and then put them down, because you're really just taking one play for 4. You're taking one. If you don't get it, you're giving up 4. And then put them down there, then use your timeouts and get the ball back. Albert Smith had a big day.
Didn't he?
The Vikings had a big day offensively. I mean, you know, they weren't that good in the 2nd quarter, but they sure were in the 1st, 3rd, and 4th.
3rd down. The Packers need the first. Fires down the middle, incomplete. A flag on the play. Brooks had a step. Favr was hit just as he let go.
I'll tell you, Brett Favre has really been hit a lot this season. It's only the 4th game of the season, but Brett Favre is a tough guy. He's a tough quarterback, but he has really taken a lot of hits. He's really been batted around. But here comes a blitz, and they know that they have to go after Favre, but his arm is so strong that he can just take off. I mean, he can just throw that ball and get it where he has to. But watch what John Randall did to him. I mean, John Randall really unloaded on Brett Favre after he threw the ball.
And that's that penalty downfield. Here's the hit on Favre again.
That's John Randall right there. Boom. That is what you call a depleter. And all of Brett Favre's cleats came out of the ground and
off his shoes.
He went feet over head.
But he's back in the huddle.
He's a tough guy. I'd never question that. I mean, you think of linebackers as being tough, nose tackles, and I'd put this guy number 4 right up there with any tough guys.
The penalty stopped the clock. The pass interference penalty on Brooks. Favre just kneels down. They have one timeout left, and that'll burn it.
And Favre's getting out of there, too. He's not going to hang around there because he knows that this is a rivalry game. And he knows that there's no love lost between these two teams, and he's not going to let anyone take a shot at him as he kneels down there. Hey, the Vikings were in this game. They had it under control, and then they lost control of it. And then the second half, they came out, and they were hot. Brad Johnson did everything he had to win. Jake Reed, Chris Carter. Those were amazing today. Vikings going for 2 to put themselves in a position to win. And Reggie White made a play.
Big play. I wonder how many times we've said that in our careers. Reggie White made a big play.
Seems like all our lives, but today was Brett Favre's day.
This is the 21st consecutive win for the Packers at Lambeau Field. Includes 3 in postseason. The last loss was in September of 1995 to the St. Louis Rams, 17-14. So they've been just about unbeatable here. Right now, let's send you down to Pam Oliver, who has Brett Favre.
All right, thanks a lot, Pat. We're going to wait till he gets the shoulder pads off. You took a bad hit there. How you feeling?
I feel good. Anytime you win a ball game, it's it's exciting, but it was a rough game. We knew it was going to be a tough, hard-fought ball game, and we found a way to win at the end.
John and Pat talked a lot about you just taking a lot of hits so far, really taking a beating kind of early in the season. Does that concern you?
No, I don't want to do it for a living, but, you know, it's football, and sometimes you get hit. We're playing good football teams. They're blitzing us a lot, but we'll be okay.
What does the record mean? Breaking the record, Bart Starr's old record today. What does that mean for you?
It just means a lot because we won the ball game. You know, it's an honor to break a guy like Bart Starr's record. But we have a long ways to go, and I'd much rather win another Super Bowl.
Feel better about the way the offense played, especially in the first half?
Yeah, we played a great defense, and we came back, and we, you know, we struggled a little bit early in the first couple of games, but we found a way to get some points on the board, and that's important against a team like this.
All right, you got a tough couple of games coming up against some teams in your division. Was this an important way to get that started?
Absolutely. You know, our division, I think, is the toughest in football right now. But to beat Minnesota the way we did today is, I think it's real gratifying.
Thanks a lot, Brett. Appreciate it. Let's go back upstairs to Pat.
All right, Pam, thank you. The final score here at Lambeau Field is Green Bay 38, Minnesota 32. Coming up on the NASDAQ postgame report, we'll get you up to date on all the scores from around the league. Also, our Fox Sports ticker will have up to the second stats. That's all next on the NASDAQ postgame report.